Well, welcome back to Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. This is Sandy, and we are still in Arizona. Today, we are starting in the garden, and we are going to go through the whole process of making a pumpkin pie from ones that we grew, how to bake the crust, how to bake the pie. It's going to be awesome. Now, both of the pies, I made one for Mom and Dad, one for us, are just out of the oven. I can just barely hold on to it. I have to tell you, this one I almost dropped onto the floor. I caught it. It was hot and it just started sliding out. But it's all good. So we're starting in the garden. And I am actually using a pumpkin and two different types of squash that make fabulous pumpkin pie. And I'm going to show you how you can heat them up so you can scoop them out of the shell and then puree them. Mix them all together. We're going to make pie crust, bake the pie, and then we are going to be off to some friends of ours because they have a little get together and we are bringing our pie with us. So out in the garden, I'm picking both some squash and some pumpkins. And this is called a Boston Marrow. It's like a Hubbard squash, only orange and great for pies. The skin is very easy to cut when you haven't had it stored very long. The more you store it, the harder that skin gets to be able to cut. Now, sometimes when you open it up, they're kind of green inside even. Don't even worry about it. We're going to scoop all that out, and we are only going to save the really big, the largest seeds so that I can use them next year. Now, this is a fairly small Boston Marrow, and so it's on a cookie sheet. We're going to add a little bit of water into that pan, and the oven is set at 350 degrees. So I'm going to pour the water in now, and see, it's maybe 1/3 of an inch. It's going to cook in there for probably at least a half hour, sometimes 45 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm going to find the largest seeds that I can. Those ones I'm going to save. The rest of them are going into the compost pile. So I'm going to rinse them real quick, and then I'm going to put them on some wax paper that they can just sit and dry for a couple days before I put them in an envelope to take them back to Wyoming. So it's been cooking for a little while, but now, see, when I could take a fork and just go right in there, I know it's done. Now I am going to let that cool for a while, and I'm going to cut up the two other pumpkins that I have. This little one is a French pumpkin. I love it because the flesh is so thick. See how I scooped it out? And it is thick. It's a French pumpkin that probably makes one of the best pumpkin pies. It has all these little warts all over it. The other one is actually a cross. They're supposed to be very thin and long, but this one got fat. So I had saved the seeds. So I'm not really sure what I should call it. Now I'm just letting those cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to scoop all of them out into the same bowl. So now they're cooler, and I'm just taking a spoon, and I'm just going to scoop them out slowly. Try not to get any of the skin in there. And by the time I get done, I have about 12 cups that I'm going to put into the food processor. It makes its own juice too. And I'm just going to puree them. But I want all three of them, the three different kinds, to go together. So I'm pureeing them all together, and then I'll mix them really good when I get them all into the bowl. But it only takes a minute or two to puree it. And it makes a beautiful pumpkin puree, which you could do a lot of things. You could make pumpkin bread, pies, cakes, soup, all kinds of stuff with this right now. Today, I'm making pumpkin pie though. I'm making one for Mom and Dad and one that we're going to take. Now we're making pie crust. So I have 3 cups of flour, and I am adding 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons of Crisco and 1 teaspoon of salt because I am making 2 very large, extra large pumpkin pies. Now most pie pans are about 9 inches. Both of the pie pans I'm using today are much larger, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to make those. Now, as you mix those up, you want them to become very crumbly. That's a key. And every so often, open it up, scrape anything that's on your beaters, because the Crisco sometimes will want to stick on there, and then just beat it just a little bit more. And when it looks all crumbly, then it's time to add the water. Now I'd like to be able to tell you specifically how much that is going to be. Every time it's a little bit different. With these two pies, it's going to be about 10 tablespoons. And you just want to watch it. And as it gets, the mixing goes round and round, see how it starts to grab hold of itself. That's what you want to see. You don't want it to be too sticky, but you want to be able to just pull it. Now here we are. I'm going to put flour on my rolling pin. And I have my dough. And I'm going to take my dough and I'm going to pat it in the flour a little bit. I'm just going to move it around. And then I'm going to just break it right in half because I have 2 pie pans. And so that one I'll put to the side. Now see how it's not sticky. If it was too sticky, I'd have to add more flour either with the mixer or on the board. So here we go. And I'm just speeding that up so we can just do it. And see how I went way outside those rings. That's because both of these pans are extra large, but it makes a great size piece of pie. And I'm just going to make it a little decorative on this one. Now we're doing the other one. Same thing. If it starts to stick at all, add a little more flour. You don't want it to stick to your rolling pin or to the sheet. So we're going to put that on there. I ripped that a little bit, but you can just push it together again. Now this one is a little bit different shape than a regular pie pan. So I'm kind of just pressing it in. And I think I'm going to just use a fork all the way around it. So those are ready for pie. So we're going to use 5 cups of pumpkin puree and 5 eggs. This is a key. If you're using 2 cups of pumpkin, you're using 2 eggs. If you're using 5 cups of pumpkin, you're using 5 eggs. It's an easy way to remember it. And I'm going to add 1 heaping cup of sugar. Now remember, I'm making 2 large pies. And so we're just going to mix that in. And as it's mixing, I'm going to add 2 cups of whole milk. Now you could use condensed milk, but that has a lot of added sugars, so I would rather use whole milk. And so we're going to let that mix, and then we're going to start adding some spices to it. We also have to add a teaspoon of salt, about a 1/3 teaspoon of cloves. You don't want it to be too overpowering. 1 heaping tablespoon of cinnamon. And then I always like to add vanilla. 1 tablespoon of vanilla. And it's just a little bit added flavor in there. But it makes a great pie filling. See how beautiful that is? Now if your pumpkins were very light, sometimes people tell me that, you could easily add a little bit of food coloring in there. I'm just going to pour it in. Lots of pumpkin pie batter there. And I'll just keep filling them in till I have used all of it. But see how large those pie pans are? Fabulous. You got to love pumpkin pie. Oven, 350 degrees for about an hour. And I usually bake it with parchment paper. I was out of that. So the last bit I added aluminum foil, which I don't really like, but that's just the way it is. It'll still be fabulous. And so I'm just going to let those cool for a little while. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the thumbs up, click the like button, and consider joining at 99 cents a month. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.